Their one, mulligan, for example,
Yeah.
against Arizona State. Now you got one that you need. You got to have this one, and it's kind of what we talked about on our podcast. It is the definition of a trap game today. You are going to Manhattan, and this team has been playing red hot. But you look at next week, and you got a ton of buzz going on in college football world about BYU at Texas Tech. BYU on a bye. They don't have to worry about not being there and ready to go undefeated. They'll be coming to Lubbock, Texas. So you heard it this morning, Kirk Herbstreit talk about a win today for the Red Raiders means college game day in Lubbock, Texas. And that's big for the city of Lubbock as well as the team. But this game today is probably even bigger than that game that comes up next week. You got to win, and it's all going to start in the run game. You're going to talk about it a lot more later in the show. But that and paired with defense. Last time we played Avery Johnson, we did not play very well against him. The first time we saw him, 5 touchdowns, all rushing. I mean, it was just he just put on a show. Totally different defense, I know that, and it all is going to lead on Jacob Rodriguez and Ben Roberts and John Curry, that second level group. If we can get pressure, he's going to extend plays. Got to be able to get him on the ground.
Yeah, running the ball today, like you said, Logan, is going to be such a huge key in this game so that we don't give Kansas State the time of possession control that we did versus Arizona State. And I want to discuss, last week how ineffective we were actually running the ball. Even though we won 42-0, we actually lost the game, or in the running game, 95-88, which is surprising. When you win a game 42-0, you would expect that we probably had 200 to 300 yards rushing or had a huge offensive explosion, and that's just not how this game turned out. We actually only ended up with 282 yards total on offense. And then, of course, Will Hammond went down with his injury, and we unfortunately lost him for the season. But, this game wasn't all doom and gloom, but especially on the defensive side, you saw Jacob Rodriguez have his amazing strip, return for a touchdown, one of the best plays you'll see this whole entire season. And then, of course, the punt block from Oliver Miles, that was a huge play in this game. And then Mitch Griffiths, how about him coming in the game, stepping up for an injured Will Hammond. Mitch coming into the game, 2 touchdowns, 1 passing and 1 rushing. He had almost 200 yards throwing. And what was your thoughts on how Mitch came into the game? I mean, this guy was literally laying concrete last year, and now he is playing big minutes in a Big 12 football game.
He was great. I mean, just to say the least, he was great to come off the bench ice cold because obviously it's like a backup, but he hasn't thrown any all season. At least Will, when he was in the backup spot, had moments in time he's shown in the last 2 years where he's went into meaningful football. Mitch Griffiths hadn't went into meaningful football in over 2 years, he said in the post-game conference. This was a big moment for not just him, but for the Red Raiders. Now you get Barron back, but you feel a lot better about your backup in Mitch Griffiths for the rest of the way because he's went in and showed that he could throw the ball. And his deep ball, I think we talked about it on the podcast, his deep ball was beautiful.
Yep.
He's able to lay it out there and let his receivers run under it. And he had the touchdown to Caleb Douglas, a drop by Caleb Douglas also on a beautiful deep ball. I mean, I'm looking for those explosive plays to happen now with Barron back in the picture. But those were some of the highlights, man. He was probably the most important thing in that Oklahoma State game to come out of it because we know how good the defense is. Every week they continue to prove. They pitch the shutout. We know how good they are. So we expect that. But we did not know what we were getting out of Will Hammond Mitch Griffiths with Will Hammond going down. We didn't know we were going to get. We saw that he's more than capable of being a Big 12 quarterback, and so that kind of makes me feel a lot better about our situation going forward.
Yeah, and kind of like how you spoke on, it wasn't like he was throwing like screens or checkdowns and they went to a huge bust play where we score on like a 75-yard screen. Like Mitch was making some tight window throws. And of course he had the really long touchdown pass to Caleb. That was a beautiful ball. I was really impressed by the way he played, and I think it just speaks on, which we've talked about all year, just how in depth this offseason that they went into constructing this roster, Logan. I mean, having your third string quarterback come in and buy into wanting to even be in that role. I mean, this guy played at Wake Forest, won games as a quarterback out in the ACC, and he willingly came to know that he was going to be the third string quarterback, and it paid off for Mitch, and I think it's one of the great stories, and it just speaks, all the great stories that you hear in sports. This is one of those times where this is one of those stories, and I think that the rest of this year he's going to be a huge part of this team. Barron, unfortunately, just he has that injury bug, and I we hope to God that he doesn't get hurt again. But man, Mitch is going to be a very vital part of this team. But I think, which we'll get into it later, I think the rest of this year, with the way that Barron has been dealing with injuries, I think our defense is going to be the one that is advancing us every single week, Logan.
Yeah, defense is going to have to carry us the rest of the way, and they've done that for a majority of this season. After the first 3 weeks, scoring barrages first 3 weeks against the inferior opponents, you go to Utah, and the defense kept you in that game.
Yeah.
Barron turned the ball over a couple times. The defense got all the turnovers back and more. The defense has been carrying us all year. We're going as far as that defense goes. And it's no change with the loss of Will Hammond as the backup, with, some injuries. Terrence Carter coming back this week, but you had some injuries all around. But the last thing on Oklahoma State is special teams was the complete difference maker in that game, and it really just changed the entire game. First play of the game, you go 99 yards, you punt block. I mean, those set up 2 touchdowns. It's 14-0, and everybody in the stadium's thinking this game's over. And so to be able to have that, we talked about it on every show. I'm going to talk about it again today. Being able to have that is big, but one little downside to that, you missed an extra point and you missed a makeable field goal. Both of your kickers, Upton Bellenfant missed the extra point, and then Stone Harrington missed the field goal. Those are some things that Kenny Perry talked about earlier in the week as a takeaway. He could not sleep. To be able to not sleep when you had a 99-yard touchdown or a kickoff return and a punt block, which are 2 of the hardest things to do in football, it just speaks volumes with this team, and I think they'll be utterly prepared because they're going to have to make all the kicks today.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's going to wrap things up for our first segment here of the Campus Live Sports Show here live at GolfSuites. Again, huge thank you to all the partners that make this possible, Roofmasters of Lubbock, as well as Paint Doctor, of course, GolfSuites, as well as our new partner, JSI Services. Thank you all for being partners and helping make it this sports show possible. Make sure y'all tune in next segment, all things Texas Tech. We got some injury updates. We have what to expect from the offense. And you've heard a lot of it all week. We're going to have to run the football, and you're going to hear all about it. So make sure you stay tuned. Come join us for the game day special here as well. Extra large pizza, pitcher of beer, and an hour of golf for just $50. Come out and join us as the Red Raiders travel to Manhattan, Kansas, take on the Kansas State Wildcats. And as always, wreck 'em.
Wreck 'em.
What's up, Campus Live fans, and welcome back to the Campus Live Sports Show here for segment number 2, where we break down all things Texas Tech, what you need to know today as they travel to Manhattan, Kansas to take on the Kansas State Wildcats. But before we get any deeper into that, I want to take a quick second to thank the partners that make this show possible. You know, as always, GolfSuites, which has been our host the entire football season as well. Great spot to watch a game, great crowd, great food specials. Come out, get the game day special. You know, extra large pizza, pitcher of beer, and an hour of golf for just $50. Come hang out with us, watch the next 2 segments. Roof Masters of Lubbock as well, Paint Doctor, and of course, JSI Services. Thank you all for partnering and helping make this show possible. Lane, we got a lot to talk about in this one. A lot of news this week has come out, a lot of uncertainty throughout the week of who's going to be in the quarterback position. We had a good idea, but we got it confirmed. And a potential tight end returning to the tight end room, only going to help the Red Raiders as they travel on the road.
Yeah, you know, Barron, he's back this week, and Terrence Carter, he's back this week as well. They're obviously Barron. He's the catalyst of this whole team. He's our starting quarterback. And then also, you know, we discussed it so much this week with missing Terrence Carter. He's the best tight end run blocker in the whole entire country, as well as being such a dangerous threat in the passing game. Seeing him back, look, I think, you know, we've seen some struggles the past 2 weeks. Obviously, we lost on the road versus Arizona State and then struggled a little bit last week against Oklahoma State. But I think this week you'll see a much better offensive put on the field. You know, I think everyone can feel the pressure this week, Logan. Everyone knows how big of a game this is. You know, all the coaches this week, I guarantee you they're not talking about that BYU game. Even though everyone may be thinking it, no one is going to be talking about it because they know how tough this game is going to be today. And we're now 7-1. We're third in the Big 12 right now behind Cincy and an undefeated BYU. Obviously, we bounced back, you know, with this win against Oklahoma State. But like I said, you know, I think anyone will tell you that performance will not result today in probably a win if we play the same way offensively. Defensively, of course, they pitch a shutout. Can't get much better than that. The defense, we know how good they are. They'll show up today. But even without Skylar Gilhauer, they're still playing their tails off. And it just seems like Jacob Rodriguez and David Bailey, they've got to be in the Heisman talks at this point. And it just seems like this defense obviously is going to continue to get better. They're top 5 in basically every defensive statistic in the whole entire country. And, man, what do you think you expect to see, though, from our offense today, Logan?
You know, the offense is going to it's going to have to look different, like you said. It didn't look great last week. You know, the score overlooks what actually happened for a majority of that game. I think what's really going to happen is it's going to be the offensive line. If the offensive line can control the line of scrimmage, both in the run game and the pass grade, like they have been pretty much for the entirety of the season. I know we saw a little bit of a dip in our run game. I think a lot has to do with the QB run game and the reliance on the QB run game because you had that option and you saw the success that it brought. But with Baron Morton, I'm 90% sure you're not going to see very many runs. I think a max you see 2 runs that are designed, if possible, if that. He's going to scramble. You can't really tell a guy not to do that. He's going to make plays. I think that if they're able to run the ball effectively the entire game, this is going to be a recipe for success for Texas Tech. We talked about it all week. Kansas State is not a highly graded defensive line. They're one of the worst in both pass rush grade and run block grade. So I expect Texas Tech to establish the run early and continue to run the football. And, you know, if it doesn't work, then you got to flip. You got to adjust. You pay these coaches a lot of money to do that.
Yeah, you know, I think, like I said, you know, bringing Barron back today, I think it could create a scenario because he has such good control of this offense. I think you'll see a scenario where our running game will show up a lot better today because he knows all the right plays to check into. You know, we saw Will have some mistakes in that against Arizona State. And on the road today in a tough environment, Barron, he's a captain. He's been in this program for so long. Even though this is his first year with Coach Leftwich, he has such a great handle because he is such an older guy and a veteran in this locker room. I think you'll see a lot different offensively today. You know, our offense literally only averaged 2.2 yards per carry against Oklahoma State, and they're maybe the worst Division I football team in the country this year. That you'll see that change today. I promise you that. And I think today too, we didn't really test Arizona State's secondary very much, and that was Will obviously playing in that game. I think you'll see Barron test them deep today. We have to, because I think, too, our wide receivers have struggled a little bit the past few weeks as well. There's been some drops. You saw, especially last week, Reggie Virgil and Caleb Douglas both dropped touchdowns. I think with Barron back today, it kind of gives everyone a jolt in this offense as well, with Terrence Carter coming back too, Logan. How do you think Terrence, what do you think his role in this offense is going to be today?
It's pivotal. He's been a huge part of this team throughout the entire season. Terrence Carter going down a couple of weeks ago, you saw, like you think you talked about it during this week, the run game just, didn't look the same. Yeah. And you could probably key the exact moment, and it was when Terrence Carter went down with his injury. This guy is not just, when he came in, everybody thought he's only a receiving threat. That's what he's known for. His blocking it wasn't great at Lafayette. He wasn't, and now when he come in, working with the tight end coaches, working with Clay McGuire, he's been able to be an asset to that run blocking group. He's going to just change the offense. He gives you another deep threat out of the slot, another guy that can play across the middle, and he's been really good. He's caught every ball that's thrown to him. I can't name you one time I've seen him drop the football. Yeah. That's just another security blanket for Barron. And I think that's something that may have been missing for Will Hammond, not having that guy, that safety blanket over the middle. I think it's going to take away. I think you're going to want to probably ease him into it a little bit, not playing as much, probably not 100% healthy. And I wouldn't mind seeing Micah Hudson in that slot position, or on the outside, you move Reggie or Coy inside. Don't feel like just because you have Terrence Carter that you can't play, Micah Hudson or some of these other guys. I feel like we need to rotate these guys in and make the corners pay. If you got the same corners out there dealing with Reggie Virgil, which is a 4-4 guy, and then you bring in Michael Hudson, who's probably a 4-4.5, 4-5 guy, being able to keep up with that over the entirety of the game is going to be tough for them. I think that you should have no problem scoring on this defense, but things happen in Manhattan, Kansas when Texas Tech goes there.
Yeah, and moving on to our drive to victory today, these are going to be really the keys to how we win this game today. And we've talked about it continuously over this show. Being able to run the football today. Kansas State has the 106th ranked rush defense in the whole entire country. This is an opportunity where we can take advantage on the road and have that time of possession control, which is not what we did against Arizona State. Arizona State had the ball for 38 minutes in that game. That, even though we got up late in that game, we had that storming comeback at the end, still ended up losing that game because, in my opinion, our defense was on the field for so much in that game that they just lost their legs at the end whenever they had to try to hold Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson at the end of that game. We've got to be able to control the time of possession today, because Avery Johnson and Kansas State, they scored 40 points the last 2 weeks. They've won the last 3 out of their 4 games. They're going to try to control that time of possession as well. I would imagine they're going to run out a similar game plan to one that Arizona State did. And, of course, Avery Johnson is such a good runner with his legs. They're going to – and forget also Matt Wells being involved in this game too. Our old head coach, I guarantee you, he's going to have some looks on the offensive side of the ball that have not popped up on film at all today. He's going to be motivated to have a good offensive showing today. And then, you said it earlier, the receivers have got to play better, because there's nothing that quiets a road crowd more than if we hit like a 50-yard bomb for a touchdown and on like a 2-play drive or something like that. Whenever you hit those long touchdown plays on the road, the crowd gets out of it. Our defense, it gives them that boost too. Instead of, if we are sluggish on the offensive side, it's like, oh man, we got to carry this game again. I think today you'll see a way better offensive output, Logan. And what are your thoughts on the keys to the victory today?
Well, yeah, it's going to be something that you got to see, from both sides of the football. I think that the defense is going to be the one that steps up. It's got to step up. It's got to play well. And it's something that, is going to be a recurring thing for Texas Tech the rest of the season is, can the defense step up again and again and again if the offense isn't able to show back up to its normal, what we saw early in the season. I think you're going to see real early. I would expect Kansas State to, if they win the toss, they're going to give Texas Tech the ball. Texas Tech has to look competent on offense. It cannot be a 3-and-out, because that's really just sets the tone. Whether you score a touchdown or not, if you could put together, at least a couple first downs, 2 or 3 first downs, then you punt, it just brings a different mentality for the rest of the game, and it's just something that we got to make sure that we're consistent on every front. And then of course you got to limit the turnovers or the flags and the turnovers. No penalties pre-snap. Penalties during the play happen. You trying to prevent a big play, things happen. Pre-snap penalties cannot happen. We saw what happened at Utah. We overcame it. We had the same problem in Houston, overcame it, didn't really affect the game. Tonight it will affect the game, so we got to make sure that we play as well as we possibly can on the things that we can control. And Coach McGuire talks about that all the time.
Yeah, and I think too another thing that could be touched on for our defense on the improvement side, we've got to contain Jace Brown today way better than we did with Jordan Tyson. And Jace isn't necessarily as talented as a receiver as Jordan, but he's still one of the best receivers in the country as well. So it's going to be a challenge guarding Jace Brown today. And I'm sure you'll see a similar game plan where Bryce Pollock, he basically followed Tyson around all game. But, if our defense is on the field all game, I would love to see us try to double team Jace Brown today. I thought that we could have double teamed Jordan Tyson more, especially at the end of that game when he had that long fourth down conversion at basically end of the game. I think that's a huge part of this game today is containing Jace Brown, and because he's obviously Avery Johnson's best weapon, and if he's contained, Avery is not as talented of a passer as Sam Levitt by any means. So if we could force Avery to throw in some tight windows, maybe throw to some guys he's not really trustworthy with, I think that's another thing that could be a huge path to victory today in this game, Logan.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one to watch. It's what we expect from a Big 12 road game. You're going to have to play as well as you can and make plays when they count. So see if the playmakers can make plays today.
Yeah.
And that'll wrap things up for our second segment here of the Campus Live Sports Show here live at GolfSuites here in beautiful Lubbock, Texas. Again, thank you to all of our partners for making this show possible. Make sure you stay tuned for our third segment as we will let you know everything you need to know about the Kansas State Wildcats, starting with our quarterback, a couple injuries to a star running back, and people you didn't know when you're going to be watching the game tonight. So make sure you'll stay tuned and come join us here at GolfSuites for the next two segments. And as always, wreck 'em.
Wreck 'em.
Live fans, and welcome back to the Campus Live Sports Show here live at Golf Suites here, beautiful Lubbock, Texas. 2 segments in, and the third segment here, we'll talk all things Kansas State. But before we get into that, I want to take a quick second to thank everybody that makes this show possible, starting with our hosts here, Golf Suites here in Lubbock, as well as Roof Master of Lubbock, Paint Doctor, and of course, JSI Services. Thank y'all all for making this show possible and y'all committed partnership to Campus Live. In this segment, we're going to talk all things Kansas State, from players to know, just kind of what to expect from them. Lane, give us a couple of players on your list. You talked about a couple already, we have, but give them a little refresher.
Yeah, and I think before I touch, on specific players, I think we discussed on it this week during our other show. This is the game that I really had circled on all year on my calendar, because this would point to a sign that this team is different than any other Texas Tech team, really besides that 2008 team that went up to Manhattan and won. It has been 17 years since we've beat Kansas State on the road, and it's been 10 years since we've just beat them in general. I know, like we said earlier, BYU's on deck. There's talk of college game day, but this game scares me, I think, even more than the BYU game does, because of how much of a trap game this is. Even though they're 4-4, they are on fire. They've won 3 out of their last 4, and they really should be on a 4-game winning streak. They were up big on Baylor, and Baylor came back, and they really blew that game. But once again, this is not your average 4-4 team. They have lost their 4 games by a total of only 14 points. I think that just shows how close this team really could be to being 7-1 or 8-0. And Chris Kleinman, he's a great coach. They got a lot of talent up there. Speaking on players, when you were asking about it, like Avery Johnson, Jace Brown, they have a really good running back in Dylan Edwards, but he won't be playing in this game today. They'll be with Joe Jackson, who he's another talented guy, and their linebackers, they have a really good linebacking unit. And like I said earlier, they scored 40 points in back-to-back games, and this is just a really dangerous team, Logan. They're hot on defense. At the linebacker unit, they got Austin Romaine and Desmond Purnell. Really, probably the second best linebacking unit in the Big 12 besides the one that we have at Texas Tech. We said it earlier, their D-line, they have struggled a lot this year. We've talked about it all day. Got to be able to run the football against that D-line today, Logan, but what are some of your key takeaways from this Kansas State team?
They're a team that's extremely talented. Preseason, you looked at this team as probably a team that was favored to go to the Big 12 championship game, if not win it. They have a lot of talent. Avery Johnson, preseason Heisman favorite, still has all that talent, hasn't put it together. We talked about it in the summer in some of our sports shows that Avery Johnson's just not consistent enough to be one of those top echelon quarterbacks. We have seen that he has played really well over the past three and a half games, pretty much 4 games. And he's starting to show a little bit of what, most would consider maturity as a quarterback, starting to figure out the way the games are played. He's thrown for 1,500 yards, 13 touchdowns through the 7 games this season. And so he's been able to really play well, and it's going to be a big matchup for our defensive line and our linebacker groups to really deal with the dual threat. We have seen a lot of dual threat quarterbacks this year. Devin Dampier, Connor Wegman, Jalen Daniels, a lot of guys that we've faced so far. We played really well against them. I think that this is probably on par with Devin Dampier, the way that, at the time that we played him, and we handled him very well. The thing that stands out to me the most is that Texas Tech is built to stop a guy like Avery Johnson.
Yeah.
The way that they built them in the portal, the speed they have at both the linebacker position and the D-line, as well as their, hybrid position with John Curry out there and A.J. McCarty. Those guys are fast enough to get. Just got to make sure we tackle. Tackle is going to be the most important thing today.
Yeah, I think, too, even their head coach, Chris Kleinman, said it this past week in their press conference. He said Avery Johnson's playing the best ball of his whole entire career, and he said that he played actually his best game of his career against Kansas. So, like you spoke on, Logan, but I think our defense is built to stop a guy like him, because even though he has a really good touchdown-interception ratio this year, and it is the best that he's looked as a passer as a college athlete, this is a defense that can force him to throw into tight windows and make those mistakes that we've seen him make, similarly to Devin Dampier. Devin, when he transferred from New Mexico to Utah, we spoke about it on our show, how turnover-prone he was. Last year, Avery Johnson was turnover-prone all over the place. And really, the reason why they've lost games this year really hasn't been because of that. It's just been because of their D-line and their secondary. So today, I think, is crucial into forcing him into making those turnovers because their offense is really talented. But I think, once again, it's really going to come down to our offense and how they show up today because I think, we said it this week, I think the faith that we have in this defense is as strong as anything in Tech athletics in the past decades. I mean, I think a good analogy you made is Niger Kennedy pitching. That's how strong this defense is and how much trust you should have in it. But that doesn't mean, they get to show up and Kansas State's not going to try to put out their best effort. So once again, I think that containing Avery Johnson, just like you said, Logan, that's going to be the biggest key to our defense in today's game.
Yeah, it is for sure. And I think, you talked about their defensive line and their linebacker group. It's like polar opposites. Their defensive line, not great. Linebacker group is elite. I think we talked about it during the week. I brought it up for sure that the running game is going to, we talked about it, Tech has to run the football, but the difference is going to be whether we can get 4 yards a carry or we can get 9 yards a carry. If we can get to the second level with our offensive linemen and block the second level, we're going to open up a lot more room for our running backs to maneuver, and that's going to be the way to win. Play action game is going to be great if you can be able to run the ball. So I think that we're going to see Texas Tech, push at those defensive linemen, see if they can push them around like they've been able to do for a majority of this season. I just think it's a matchup that, it does favor Tech on paper, but it's a road game. You haven't been able to beat this team. It's all the external, things that really scare some Tech fans.
Yeah, and I think, too, what you'll probably see from Kansas State's defense today, you'll see a lot of generated pressure because their defensive line, like we said, even though they haven't been great all year, with their really great linebacking unit, they're going to try to generate pressure from there. They're going to try to generate from their secondary because our offensive line has been one of the top 25 best offensive lines in the whole entire country this year, especially in pass protection. They're going to try to generate as much pressure as they can today, especially with Barron. We don't know if he's 100%. We think he's close, but even if he is close to 100%, we know that Barron's not the most mobile guy, especially with a bad knee that he potentially could have. You're going to see them try to get after him today. You're going to try to see some exotic looks on the defensive side. You're going to see them try to force Barron to make turnovers. That's really one of their only hopes in this game on the defensive side is forcing turnovers because based off of their defensive line play, I think that we should be able to run the ball at will today. But, once again, we can't just show up and say that and it happens. We got to be able to put the product on the field. So I'm really excited to see how this game turns out because I'm definitely nervous, Logan.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one to watch. We're creeping up on about 20 minutes or so before it. So that's going to conclude our third segment here of the Campus Live Sports Show. Make sure you stay tuned for our fourth and final segment as we have our Paving the Way to Victory segment presented by JSI Services. So make sure you stay tuned for that, as well as thank you to our partners, Roofmaster of Lubbock, as well as Paint Doctors, as well as our host here today, GolfSuites of Lubbock. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And we have some games we'll be picking around the country, some games already on TV we might talk about a little bit. So make sure you stay tuned. And as always, wreck 'em.
Wreck 'em.
From Miller Waldrop Studios, this is Campus Live.
What's up, Campus Live fans, and welcome to the fourth and final segment of the Campus Live Sports Show here live at GolfSuites here in beautiful Lubbock, Texas. We've had 3 great segments letting you know everything you need to know about the Texas Tech versus Kansas State game here coming up just in about 15 minutes. So now it's time to kind of look ahead, but first we're going to make sure that we do a new segment called Paving the Way to Victory, brought to you by JSI Services. Fans, JSI Services is a proud partner of Campus Live. Be sure to visit their website at jsiservicesllc.com to learn more about their asphalt paving services, earth, dirt works, concrete and gutter paving, and crack fill, seal coating, and stripping services. Thank you to JSI Services for their proud support of Campus Live and the sports show here at GolfSuites, man. Let's talk about it, man. What are your keys to victory? You talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, we've discussed it all day. We've got to be able to absolutely run the football today. Defense, we've got to be able to contain Avery Johnson. These are going to be the 2 biggest keys to this game, and I think also protecting Barron in the passing game and letting him have time to throw the football today, because obviously when Will starts, he has the ability to run the football as well. So that's taken out of the equation on offense today. I don't think you're going to see Barron run the football very much for the rest of this year, because we've got to keep him healthy. And I think those 3 keys to this game: running the football, protecting Barron, and obviously on defense containing Avery Johnson. Those are going to be the paths to victory today, Logan.
Yeah, I totally agree. In my notes, number 1 key to victory: Barron returning. I think that by itself is a huge key to victory for Texas Tech, having QB1 back, being able to have, reins of the offense. I think he's going to have a huge day today. I would expect him to play about as well as he can. He's got a lot to prove. A lot of people in the community thought QB controversy for a couple weeks. This is his team, and it always has been. Secondly, you talked about run game has to be effective. I think that you need to have in the realm of 150 total rushing yards between all of your backs to be successful in this game. And then lastly, I think you look to make big plays downfield. Got to be able to push the envelope down the field with Barron Morton. You have him back. He's very good at reading defenses and pushing the ball downfield. And as long as he can limit the mistakes, we'll see some fireworks possibly, in Manhattan for the Texas Tech offense. And they're in line for a big performance, and they need one.
Absolutely. And as we move on to a few of our predictions just from other games around the country before we get to our game, this is a game that's actually going on right now. It's almost wrapped up. There's still some time left. We actually touched on this game during the week. Vanderbilt at Texas, and actually Arch Manning ended up playing in this game today. We thought he wasn't, and even without him playing, we actually both predicted a Texas victory with Matthew Caldwell, who was supposed to start. But what are your thoughts so far from the game that you've seen today?
Yeah. The score right now is closer than this game actually has been.
Yeah.
For a majority of this game, Texas has dominated on both sides of football. Arch has played amazing today. Really just proving, the preseason hype today. He's really been really good. Diego Pavia has done his thing. A big 67-yard touchdown just a few minutes ago to Eli Stowers. You got 3 minutes and change left. You're down 10, no timeouts. Vanderbilt just got the ball. That's a tough road ahead, tough sledding, but if anybody can do it, it's probably Diego Pavia, to be honest, with the way that they played this season. I do think Texas holds on.
Yeah.
And moving to the second game, I got you here, Oklahoma at Tennessee. We talked about this one as well during the week. All of these we probably have. It's going to be an interesting one. Initial thoughts now that it's day of.
Yeah, my tune really hasn't changed much in this game, to be honest. Earlier this week, we had predicted, Tennessee to win this one, walking away pretty much. And I'm going to continue to stick to that. I think, Josh Heupel, he doesn't have much love lost for the school of Oklahoma, and that's the school he played quarterback at. And last year, they beat him on the road, and they had a chance to really beat him bad, and they didn't. I think today, this is the day that you see Tennessee run up the score on Oklahoma. I know the line's only like 2.5. I really don't see any scenario where Oklahoma goes into Neyland today and walks out with a victory. I think Tennessee wins this one big. I got them 42-24.
Yeah, I just think that Oklahoma's going to have a hard time scoring, It just seems like a common occurrence, and this Tennessee defense is what's held them back this year. It has not been the offense, it's been the defense, and they really can't stop anybody. I do think Oklahoma is going to score in this game overall. I mean, it's going to be it's going to be hard to contain. They're not going to be able to stop anybody. I think it's going to be probably in the realm of, I'm thinking 38-27 probably. And I think Tennessee pulls out the victory. And go ahead.
Yeah, and then just moving on to the biggest game in the Big 12 this week besides our game. College game days there. Cincinnati traveling to Utah. These are two of our potential opponents in the Big 12 championship if we end up making it that far. Cincinnati, what a season they've had. Brennan Sorsby just continues to play like one of the best quarterbacks in the whole entire country. But today they are going to be missing their starting running back and Evan Pryor at running back, and it's a huge loss because he's an amazing running back, one of the best running backs in the whole entire country. And I think that's why you're seeing the line movement get so high in this game. Utah's favored by 10.5 right now. Earlier this week, it was at 8.5. And we were still predicting a Utah win in this game. I do think Cincy keeps it close, though, for a while. And then I think you'll see the run game on Utah just pull it out in the end and actually end up covering this game at the 10.5 mark. I have Utah winning this game 34-23 over Cincinnati.
Yeah, I just think Utah is going to wear them down both on the offensive line in their run game as well as the defensive line. We saw how good their defensive line was against us a couple of weeks ago. I mean, they were dominant. They really just pushed everybody around the entire time. I think that you have arguably, the two best tackles on Utah's offensive line. We saw them up front and personal. They're just going to wear down Cincinnati, I think, in this. And this is really Cincinnati's big coming out of the game. Like, this is where they go to prove if they're the real deal or not. College game day, out in Salt Lake City. I think that Utah pulls this one out, and I'm going to go 38-21. I think that they really just pull away.
Yep.
And lastly, the last game on the schedule, USC at Nebraska. The extension for Matt Rule. How does he come up? He's facing Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley's always had a really good offense. He has one of his best quarterbacks, in my opinion, at the helm in Jade Mayava. I think that it's going to be a dogfight, really. Probably with the cross-country travel. I think USC pulls it out, though.
Yeah, I think that's probably the reason why you're seeing this game being favored in USC's favor. All the talk of Matt Rule these past few weeks with Penn State and everything, that has subsided for now. I wonder if they made this move to extend him right now to kind of quiet the talks for the team this season, because we've actually seen Matt Rule leave Baylor even though he signed an extension and he went to the NFL to Carolina. So I think that was a move to ease the tension while also moving away from the Penn State poachers, as you could probably call them. But I think that this is a week where USC kind of gets themselves back into the playoff picture. I think that they're just a better team all around than Nebraska. I think that their offense is better. I think Nebraska will definitely put up a fight today, but I think that USC, they score a late touchdown to cover in this game. I think USC wins 30-21.
Yeah, I agree. I think they win probably, 33-20 is probably what I'm going to go with. But, yeah, I think they win this game pretty easily.
And then obviously, moving on to our game, this is the game we've been talking about all day, Texas Tech versus Kansas State. Going on the road, I think this is going to be an absolute battle, guys. I think this is going to be one of our toughest games this whole entire season. All the talk of going on the road and everything that we've heard this whole entire week, I do think that our offense does bounce back today, though. I think they bounce back enough. I think our defense continues to play. I do think Kansas State scores some points today, though. It's not going to be another shutout. I think this is a close game, Logan. I think Tech wins 28-24, heading into maybe the biggest week in the history of Texas Tech football since the huge Tech and Texas game in 2008.
Yeah. I have it very close. I have it very similar. I think that Barron has a big day. I think the run game is effective, but I just trust the defense. I think I have it 28-17. I have a late touchdown from Kansas State. I think it's close in the first half, but I think that Texas Tech, again, like they did in Utah, they pull away. They have everybody they need. We're seeming like we're getting healthier. Obviously with the loss of Will Hammond, but the core group is getting healthier. I think that they have a big day, and I think that Texas Tech will come back to Lubbock, Texas, in a potential top 10 matchup with College Game Day coming to Lubbock for the first time since 2008. I think it's going to be a great time in Lubbock. I think we should all be having a great time watching today. hopefully we don't get a let down.
Yeah.
Thank you all for tuning in to the Campus Live Sports Show today here live at Golf Suites. Again, a huge thank you to everybody that makes this show possible. JSI Services, Golf Suites of Lubbock, Roof Masters of Lubbock, as well as Paint Doctor. Come out and join us. Get the game day deal. Extra large pizza, pitcher of beer, and an hour golf for just $50, as well as $2 draft beer here at Golf Suites. Best beer deal in town. Make sure y'all come out and join us. Watch the game. It's, plenty of TVs if you're not a fan of tech, but you probably aren't watching this if you're not a fan of tech. So we're expecting a big one, so make sure y'all come out and join us. And as always, wreck 'em.
From Miller Waldrop Studios, this is Campus Live.